facts is usually an acceptance of reality, rather than staying in that denial phase, which could be your initial reaction, or complete ongoing delusion. But Trump is weak when it comes to accepting tough realities. He lies constantly, that's documented. He lies most about truths that could hurt him politically, psychologically, or otherwise, and he is still lying about his 2020 loss, which linked to plots that have landed so many other people in prison, those lies with consequences. And in that sense, tonight we can tell you Donald Trump's lies can still be a tell. He doesn't lie about the election results he got in Texas, which he won twice. He lies about the things where he is losing or thinks he's losing or is on defense. And that, from the joke to the truth, tees up exactly how Trump and the Republican Party are falling further behind on reproductive rights and choice, which is now going to be on even more ballots this November. Now remember, a huge majority of Americans say abortion should be a decision made by a woman and her doctor, not by the government. And that's especially the case earlier in a pregnancy when you break out these numbers. And that includes, as you see there, most Republicans. Or take Florida, where this DeSantis Republican abortion ban is now up for voters' review in this November's election through another ballot initiative. Most voters, according to the polls in Florida, oppose it, including Republicans. That's a reality that Donald Trump clearly knows about. So this week, he tried to falsely downplay this issue of reproductive rights as somehow fading. And then, on the question in Florida, a big state where he lives, he literally refused to say where he stands on the Florida vote.
I think the abortion issue has been very much tempered down, and I've answered, I think, very well in the debate, and it seems to be much less of an issue. I'm going to announce that. I'm going to actually have a press conference on that at some point in the near future, so I don't want to tell you now. But Florida does have a vote coming up.
Yes, Florida does have a vote coming up. That's what they asked him about, that state measure, which, as he said, he wouldn't answer. And then talked about, hyping a future press conference, which is a distraction technique. If you know what you stand for and are willing to stand on it, to stand on your positions in campaign business, you do it. He did not. But we know Trump's position. He put the 3 judges on the Supreme Court who overturned abortion rights. So now, trying to confuse people about his record or future announcements, I guess that's one political strategy on this issue. His party's current platform, which he's in charge of as the nominee, like Project 2025, though, already wrote down extreme anti-abortion plans. We have that. And that's even as Trump and his own aides still try to run from their own literally written out blueprints from the platform to Project 2025. This is a point that we pressed Trump White House veteran Stephen Miller on.
That Project 2025 has absolutely nothing to do with the past, present, or future. President Trump and President Trump alone will make his own policies.
There are issues where we see a kind of overlap. On abortion, a big issue. Project 2025 talks about cracking down on these abortion drugs. The current Republican platform talks about using the 14th Amendment to try to enshrine this sort of life test, as they call it, that would do similar things.
There will be no national abortion ban under a Trump administration.
That is the sound of one of Donald Trump's most loyal, long-serving, and quite conservative advisors running away from their record on reproductive rights. Now, it's up to voters to listen and decide what they believe. We are here gathering the evidence. But I am going to go through the evidence and the fact check, because it's the kind of claim you get from political people when they know a stance is unpopular. Trump and his new running mate already have the public and clear record opposing abortion access, and going as far as calling for the criminal punishment of women for exercising what for many years had been a right. And by the way, many pro-life leaders oppose jailing women for this procedure, even if they separately don't think it should happen, precisely because it's so unpopular and, again, depending on the decade, unconstitutional.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
I certainly would like abortion to be illegal nationally. Hopefully we get to a point where Ohio bans abortion and California and the Soroses of the world respect it.
I was able to terminate Roe v. Wade. I was so honored to have done it.
That's what he did. That was his position. And now he's basically trying to spin and swim away from that. But Donald Trump may be heading into a wave so big it overtakes anything he does. Even the best surfers find some waves are just too big to ride to take for a spin. And they are, as you'll see here, just overwhelmed. There it is. Just can't even ride it. Now, in real life, these waves are blue. Politically, it's more of a purple wave because states blue, purple, and red are all rejecting Donald Trump's abortion policy since Roe was ended. This is one of the largest bipartisan trends of our era. Trump faces this barrier-breaking nominee, a woman running on choice with this wind at her back. And the news tonight, just like those off-year elections where people voted for choice because it was on a state ballot, the news tonight is 2 more states will put abortion rights on their November ballots. This is big and follows the pattern. It includes the key swing state of Arizona and delegate-rich Missouri. Elections officials found that the activists pushing this qualified to get those issues on their ballot this November. So those states join Florida with the state initiative that Trump says he won't announce a position on yet, for 8 total states with these confirmed abortion rights initiatives on your ballot if you live in these states this November. This does not look like an issue that Trump can just swim away from or lie away into the background. In those 8 states, it will be staring at voters when they literally go into the voting booth and see that, among other issues, and candidate names. And in these next 8 weeks leading up to those election days in all those various states, or whether you vote early, sooner than 8 weeks, voters will be seeing an alternative candidate, a different choice, an option. And she's not spinning or lying about her stance or past record. There's been much talk about what we've heard from Kamala Harris in these 3 weeks since she became the nominee, and what press she's doing or not, and what events she's doing or not. But the record matters. I just showed you some of Trump and Vance's record. Now let's look at Harris's record. Before she was even the nominee, she had been on offense about reproductive rights.
So-called leaders are saying that after an individual has experienced such a crime of violence, a violation to their body, and surviving that these so-called leaders would say to that same person, and the next decision you make about your body is not yours either. That's immoral.
That is the moral position, and in her case, a consistent position on this major issue. Politics sometimes is about the crowds I mentioned. It's about the history. It's about all kinds of clashes, but sometimes it's about stuff that really matters to people's lives. You can watch Donald Trump's record there, and you can watch Harris's record, and you can see what you think they're saying, whether they seem to care, and what their consistency is. If you watch, of course, the ballot, which is the politics side, anyone who wants Democrats to win, even separate from this issue, thinks this is the wave, larger than many other waves, that could completely topple even a candidate who's been effective at spinning and lying his way through other waves. Is this the wave, combined with Kamala Harris, that overtakes Donald Trump? Well, Christina Greer and Margaret Carlson, we'll get into that after our shortest break. We're back together in 90 seconds.
So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking
about our honeymoon.
What about Africa? Safari.
Hot air balloon ride.
Swim with elephants.
Wait, can we afford a safari?
Great question. Like everything, takes a little planning.
Or put the money towards a down payment?
On a ranch?
In Montana?
With horses.
Let's take a look at those scenarios.
JP Morgan Wealth Management has advisors in Chase branches and tools like Wealth Plan to help keep you on track. When you're planning for it all, the answer is JP Morgan Wealth Management.
The best moments deserve the best eggs, especially when they're Eggland's Best. Tastes so deliciously fresh, with better nutrition too. We love our eggs any style, as long as they're the best. Eggland's Best.
I'm out here telling people how they can save money with Experian. With Experian, you can see your recurring subscriptions. And with one click, you can cancel it.
I'd like that.
It's so easy, I think even Asher can do it.
That's amazing. Thanks, bud.
Get started now with the Experian app.
When the internet said Red Lobster's going away, your boy Flavor Flav said, not today. Crab Fest is here, boy, and they got 2 flavors, roasted garlic and new Cajun butter. When you gotta have seafood, you gotta have Red Lobster.
It's time to feed the dogs real food, not highly processed pellets. The farmer's dog is fresh food made with whole meat and veggies. It's not dry food. It's not wet food. It's just real food. It's an idea whose time has come.
On this issue, one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree that the government should not be telling her what to do with her body.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris talking about reproductive rights before she became the nominee on a night where 2 more states have just put that on this November's ballot. We are joined by political science professor from Fordham, Christina Greer, the author of Black Ethnics, Race, Immigration, the Pursuit of the American Dream. You can get it wherever books are sold and support one of our guests here. And Margaret Carlson, columnist with the Washington Monthly. Welcome to both of you. Christina, I mentioned the substance, the ethics, as well as the politics. Does this being on the ballot in 2 more states matter this November? Is this part of the wave that Trump has to run against?
Absolutely. You know, Emily's List has shown us time and time again when reproductive justice and reproductive rights and what many people will just say abortion is on the ballot, Democrats win. Fun fact, Senator LaFonza Butler used to be the executive director of Emily's List, so she is keenly aware of how important this issue is. And it's also, you know, as Vice President Harris was saying in that previous clip, it's not just about a moral question. You know, unfortunately, Democrats have adopted the Republican language of pro-life and pro-choice. This is a pro-choice and an anti-choice conversation. Should the government demand that a woman has no longer has autonomy over her own body?
And what Harris just said speaks to that. I don't know if you're familiar with the tradition of Shabbat.
I am.
Or the Sabbath.
I am.
People call it different things. You could be very pro, I'll say, Shabbos, but not want the government to jail people based on whether they did observe it that way or observe it the way some politician said, or do you do it on Saturday or Sunday? There's a long tradition in this country on most issues which still have religious substance, which means a lot to people, of saying, yes, you can speak on it, you can organize on it, you can get together on it.
Right.
That's all of your religious and freedom and speech rights. But as soon as it starts being, oh, we're going to jail you for not following this. And so she just made that point. She seems to be, and it's interesting because we were talking last night with a whole cadre of leaders, as you know, about the double standards for both women and sometimes women of color in this country. She seems to be really striking an inclusive note of saying she welcomes people who are religiously pro-life. She's talking about whether we're going to live in a theocracy.
Right. Well, I mean, I went to a Quaker school with Jesse Waters, by the way, where we talked about religious freedom and inclusion and sort of making sure everyone understood, even if you choose not to ever have an abortion, it's okay if someone else does. That's not the government's decision to make. And it's also, I think, interestingly enough, Democrats are slowly but surely pivoting to the economics. We know that people go to the polls for economic issues. This is also an economic issue. You are forcing women and families to make decisions that they're not ready to make. So as Democrats make the economic, not just the moral issue, that's a larger question where a lot more independents and white women who have been on the fence, who have sons, not necessarily daughters, are saying, well, wait a minute. If Republicans are saying that, you know, life begins at inception, what does that mean for my son? What does that mean for my family? And so, thank you, conception. I always say inception.
Inception is where you have those different dream states.
Yes, exactly. That movie was quite weird.
Did you like that movie?
I did not.
When I saw it, I asked, in what dream state would this movie be any